covering the stories that impact your life, your town, your state, and your future. This is the Means Report with your host, Brad Means.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Means Report. We certainly appreciate you spending part of your day with us, where today we have a very informative edition of the Means Report. We're focusing on mental health really for all ages, and how we can maintain a good outlook on life all the time, how to cope, the resources that are out there. Also, what about our young people and the anxiety that they feel? What's out there to help them? We'll talk with him about that, and of course we'll wrap up the Means Report as we always do with ways that you can help stay in touch and get some great guests on our set, like our first one, Dr. Lauren Bigham. Dr. Lauren Bigham is very busy working as an assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Health Behavior, also directs the Psychosocial Oncology Service Program at MCG and Wellstar Georgia Cancer Center. Dr. Bigham, thanks for being here. I appreciate you.
Thanks for the invitation.
Well, it's all, the door's always open for you because you help us understand some complicated issues. And the first one is just a general question for you about mental health. In general, how likely is it that somebody will have or deal with a mental health condition at some point in their lives? When you talk about mental health, sometimes we think, oh, that just happens to others.
I appreciate you asking. In the last year, we know that probably 1 in 5 individuals experience a diagnosable mental health concern.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
About 1 in 5 also will experience a substance abuse concern. And over the lifespan, about 40 to 50% of our patients, or our general population, is going to experience kind of a mental health concern.
1 out of every 2 people, pretty much, before it's all said and done.
Yeah.
What causes it? Is it stress? Because I was thinking about things that are going on in our world, whether it is the time of year, whether it's politics, whether it's a hurricane. Does stress impact our mental health?
Certainly, and our stress response and our cortisol and how it impacts our bodies physically, but also it impacts how we think, maybe how we feel, maybe even what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so depending on what that looks like, it can certainly add to stress and pressure. And this year has not been an easy one.
It hasn't. You know, I talked to a guest last week about how our storm cleanup is going and how our response to the hurricane is going. Would you agree that even just when you drive past a debris pile, and you might not even think of it, but subconsciously it hurts you, it impacts you, it depresses you? Is that a thing?
Certainly. I think we encounter triggers all the time of the hurricane. And for many, that was a really difficult experience to live through, and also a very scary experience.
Yeah.
And so just this year, kind of living through and not quite sure how this is all going to go. I know that was certainly my experience during the hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
And then all these other kind of implications, seeing the debris, seeing our homes, and seeing all the tarps. These things impact us. This is not what we're used to seeing, is it?
No, and it's tough to listen to you answer that question, because I'm sitting here thinking everything you're saying resonates with me. I know people are watching and nodding their heads while they listen to you, because it's a huge, heavy thing.
A lot of implications financially, socially,
yeah,
work-related. Many cars were totaled.
Mm-hmm.
These are additional stressors. And so when we think, kind of operational stress, we all experience it on a daily basis, but now we have these additions that no one would have ever imagined happening.
All right, let's just stay on this for a minute then. How can we get over that? How can we know that, okay, what's the difference between get over it, it's a debris pile, it's the thousandth one you've seen today, or I need to talk to somebody about this, it's too much? How do you know?
For sure, and I really appreciate you asking that question. It's all in, how it impacts the individual. Kind of, does it impact their mood? Are they feeling more hopeless or helpless? Or maybe are they a bit more nervous, worried? Sleep, if sleep is changing or evolving, or their appetite is changing from where they're at, usually at baseline. When we see some of these things occurring, and they're becoming unworkable,
mm-hmm.
Or they're kind of getting in the way of an individual living a full life, a meaningful life.
Mm-hmm.
where they feel energized about what they're doing. If kind of these triggers and these emotions and these memories are getting in the way, maybe it's time to seek out some help.
What's that look like? What does help look like? Do we sit down and talk to you about it as a psychologist and you just guide us through it? Can you give us a pill?
I think that's another great question. And it really depends on the person and what fit best for them. I have some patients who say, working at a cancer center and working as a health psychologist, I work with patients on improving their physical health and well-being. When you get a cancer diagnosis, usually that comes with a lot of medication. So I have some patients who say, no more medication. I've had enough.
Right.
I've topped out. So maybe counseling would be a better alternative for them. And then I talk with other people when I go into the hospital and talk with our patients over there. They say, I'm looking forward to getting out of the hospital. I'm looking forward to resuming some normalcy. Maybe medication will fit into my kind of next steps a little bit easier. Very much dependent on the individual.
How long does it take until we start to feel better?
Depending.
Yeah, it has to vary with each person, right?
It does. And also kind of what's going on. Is it anxiety? Is it depression? Or maybe PTSD from the hurricane?
Yeah.
But depending, you can probably see with medications change within 2 to 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks for everything to really set in and start working as they should. With counseling, you should also see some benefit after 2 and 3 appointments, and certainly after about 3 months.
Dr. Bigham, any general advice that you can give when it comes to coping with the holidays? Because not every day is merry and bright. Sometimes this time of year is a real challenge.
Yes.
How can those who are having difficulties get through, certainly this month?
Yeah, and I appreciate the emphasis on this time of year is not the same for everyone. It can be a reminder of maybe who we've lost.
Yep.
It can be a reminder of how life has changed since the last Christmas or holiday. It can be tough. So I recommend to all of my patients that we plan ahead, that we put certain things on the calendar that are meaningful, that we know will be pleasant. We call it pleasant activity scheduling.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, it's important. And making sure that we have structure. And if you've lost somebody during the past year, making sure you find ways to honor them, to bring them, to kind of celebrate them during the holidays. That grief is the continuation of love. We should still honor that.
Grief is the continuation of love. I'm going to hold that close to my heart, I assure you. Let's look at your important role at the Cancer Center. So, am I correct to assume that when somebody gets a diagnosis or they're beginning that cancer journey, that you're there to guide them through it? And if so, how do you do that? How do you help them through their darkest hour?
We are a cancer center that really wants to take care of the entire person in front of us. We have wonderful doctors. We have the best medicine. But we know that when you receive a cancer diagnosis or any kind of major medical diagnosis, there's a lot more to it than just the best doctors and the best medicine.
Yeah.
So I help our patients navigate, whether it's anxiety or depression, or maybe we need to change some health behaviors. Maybe they're not sleeping, or maybe they're in a lot of pain. Regarding all of those things, I can help them. And depending on kind of what's the style of the individual and what they're most interested in, we'll tailor. So maybe I'll ask my patients to challenge some of the things that they're telling themselves.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'll ask patients to maybe challenge and adapt some of their behaviors to improve their mood. Or maybe I'll help teach our patients how to downregulate their stress response so that the anxiety and the panic doesn't feel overwhelming.
Probably time for 1 or 2 more questions. And the first one just has to do with access to mental health care. The second one has to do with how do we pay for it. Is mental health care, by and large, easy to access? It's one thing to go to urgent MD and get a flu shot. Mental health care seems like a daunting task to undertake.
It can be.
Yeah.
And especially in our state, we're 37th in the nation for access to mental health providers. So that's psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors. So it is daunting to find who you need and when you need them. So to go about that process, talking with your PCP, your primary care doc, your GP, seeing who would they recommend you go see.
They can refer me to you.
Very much so, and that's actually how I receive many of my referrals. Other places, certainly checking with your health insurance plan, see who's covered. Copays can run you a little bit between maybe no copay to $75, depending if it's covered by your insurance.
What about if somebody walks in with no insurance and says, look, I got to see you, you need to fix me? How much are they looking at?
It can be a financial strain.
Yeah, it could be huge.
It can, and my cancer center's been incredible in helping us get certain internal monies and grants that allow us to see patients when their health insurance is lacking.
Yeah.
But there's also the Georgia Crisis and Access line. So you can call this access line, you can ask who takes your insurance in your county, and they'll get you set up that way with somebody who will be able to see you.
My last question, just about 45 seconds. How important are family members, co-workers, friends, when it comes to ensuring the best mental health for those we care about in our lives? Do we play a big role?
Very much so. Our support system and the people in our corners. And then sometimes there are people that might not be so helpful.
Right, right.
So depending, but making sure that we move towards those people who help us feel like our best selves. And then supporting our loved ones, especially if they're going under some sort of medical concern. Last but certainly not least, just in case, if somebody is experiencing any kind of thoughts of harm to self, sometimes this happens this time of year. Emergency like suicide hotline, 988 is very important. So if anybody out there is worried about another person in their lives, the Georgia Crisis and Access line and also 988 are important.
And I am going to share that information with our executive producer and director, Jarrett Ledger. He will put that on the screen for sure. I cannot thank you enough for what you do and for the information you've given us today. Thank you, Dr. Bigham.
Not a problem. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. Please come back. We need more information like what you provided today. Dr. Lauren Bigham, please take care of yourselves. Be well this holiday season and year round. When we come back, we're going to talk about children and anxiety. Dr. Dale Peoples is a psychiatrist. He'll help bring those issues to light on the Means Report.